In this section I'm just going to describe some of the functions and facilities that the program has to offer that don't have a direct bearing on the financial calculations that the program makes. When the program is started for the first time, the first screen displayed is an end-user license agreement which you are required to read and accept. The next screen displayed is the activation screen. An activation code is required before the program can continue, and the activation code is unique and specific to the USB stick that has been supplied. The activation code will normally be supplied by email at the time you requested the USB stick. If not, it can be obtained by email, and the instructions for this procedure are documented in the startup instructions. When the data is modified and saved with your own choice of file names, these screens will no longer appear. The program will run on any PC when the USB stick is installed. The first thing you'll notice when the program starts is that it may look like a traditional Excel screen. The program will always start at the home menu sheet, and most of the traditional Excel features such as grid lines, formula bars and column and row headings will be automatically removed from view. They may not be automatically removed from other screens, but because we don't need any experience in Excel we can remove them. For example, I am going to go to the first of the worksheets, the data entry sheet, and by going to the view item on the menu we can turn off the formulae bar and turn off the headings, also remove the ribbon menu by doing a right mouse button and say minimize the ribbon. This will give us the maximum amount of visual space on the screen for the program. At the top of the sheet you will not only notice that there is a heading, and the heading displays the address of the property that we currently have under review. The information displayed here is taken from the street address and the suburb that you have entered in the section below. Also, there is an indication of just exactly what is being intended by this particular project. These headings have a dual purpose. They not only display the nature of the project, but they also display any errors that may exist in the data that you have entered. For example, when I enter a value to force an error, it displays quite clearly across the top that there is an error in the data, and it also gives me a plain English description about exactly what is incorrect. When I subsequently correct the error, all of the messages and warnings will disappear. You will also notice at the top of the screen a number of buttons. These buttons link us to some websites which will help us to do research on the property that we currently have under review. These links will take us to websites that are directly related to the suburb, council or postcode that we have entered. Down the side here we have a number of additional links, and they link us to other sections of the data entry worksheet. For example, if I click on the project timeline plan, it takes me to the project timeline plan section of this particular sheet, and when I click on back to the top, it takes me back to the top of the sheet. I'd now like to draw your attention to the bottom of the screen. Just like any Excel workbook, you'll notice that the workbook is divided up into a number of worksheets, and each of these particular sheets, as you see across the bottom here, have a particular purpose, and we will discuss them in later sessions. I would also just like to point out that not all of these sheets will be visible all of the time. Many of them are showing purely and simply because of the nature of the data that we've entered on the data entry sheet. Sheets such as the borrowing sheets, cash flow and equity growth sheets will not be shown when the input data does not require them to be available. All of the data that is required for the feasibility study needs to be entered on the data entry sheet. None of the other sheets have any provision for data entry and are purely for reporting purposes. The next thing that I would like to mention is the amount of helpful information which is available with the program. You'll notice that when you point to some cells, some comments will appear. For the most part, these comments just explain how the data in this particular cell is used, but in some cases it is also a guide about the cost for a particular cost item. In addition to the cell comments, there is also a fairly substantial help system built into the program. You will notice across the top where you have the normal Excel menu, an additional item called Activate/Help. We select this item and then we select Help from the drop-down menu. The help system will open to us. From here we can navigate to the subject matter that we want by looking at the contents or index, or even entering a search. We can clear the screen just by pressing the X. The easiest way to access the help system is to select a cell anywhere on this particular spreadsheet, or any other spreadsheet for that matter, and press the function 1 key, F1, at the top of cells that we've selected. At this point we can exit from the help system just by pressing the X. In addition to the help system, there are a number of other special functions in the program, and these are activated by the series of buttons that you see down the right-hand side of the screen. The first, Add New Worksheet, will allow you to create as many new worksheets as you like, and you can store whatever data you want in addition to the normal program data. The next function is the Update Stamp Duty Rates, and by clicking on this button we open up a series of rates that we can change at any time for any state consistent with the type of changes that are made by the state revenue offices in each state. We can also update land tax rates in exactly the same way, again, for each state. The next special function is the Display Watch Window function, and when I click on this button, a window will open up which shows us the financial results without having to go to another sheet or to produce any reports. This watch window can be moved anywhere so that it is inconspicuous or in an area over the screen that we are not currently using, and it will remain on top as we scroll up and down the screen. When changes are made to the data, the results are immediately calculated and shown in the watch window. For example, when I change the purchase price, as you can see, the watch window immediately displays any impact on the anticipated profit and loss, or any cash flow. This window can be removed at any time by pressing the X, and at any time when you are in a particular area of the screen where the Activate Watch Window button is not on display, the watch window can be displayed by pressing the combination of keys, Ctrl/Shift and F1, and when those combination of keys are pressed, the watch window will reappear in the top left-hand corner of the screen. Again, the watch window can be removed just by clicking on the X, and we can return to the top of the sheet by pressing back to the top. Another special function is the Gst Assistant, and when this is selected, a series of questions will be asked to help you determine which GST scheme is applicable for the project. The questions in the Gst Assistants have a simple yes/no answers, but in all cases, questions have a not sure or explain button to help you make the right decision. When you have completed answering all of the questions, the program will tell you which GST scheme you should select in the input data. GST will be covered in a lot more detail in a later lesson. Another button is the Online Rates Update function. When selected, the land tax rates and stamp duty rates for each state will be automatically updated from rates that are maintained on the Internet. This cannot be reversed, and messages will be displayed if the rates are up to date. The manual update functions are still available if the online rates have not been changed to reflect recent changes. I would also like to point out that some of the cells are color-coded. They are color-coded so that it makes it easier for the user to identify the cells where data needs to be updated, entered or selected. Green cells are cells for the user to either enter or modify data. The beige cells contain drop-down lists that limit the selection for that particular cell, and the gray cells contain formulae and information that is contained in those cells is automatically calculated by the program and cannot be changed by the user. The Home menu is provided to help the user remove sections of the data entry sheet that do not require any input data for the particular project under review. When each section is turned off, the corresponding section will be automatically hidden from view on the data entry sheet, and this will be reversed when the sections are selected again. Sections will not be removed if there is data entered that will have some bearing on the financial results of the project, and messages will be displayed to that effect. There are buttons available to take the user to the data entry sheet without any modifications, or with modifications if preferred. Now, having made our selections, and for this demonstration I'm going to leave all sections displayed, so let's move to the data entry sheet by clicking on the button at the top of the screen. I hope you will continue with the rest of the tutorials, and thank you for listening.